Hey there, everybody. This is Renessa, Boley, Layne, and welcome again to another conversation on creating your perfect work. If you follow me, you know that I'm all about equipping you to discover, design, and get highly paid doing work you love, whether that means radically changing careers, launching a business, or bringing your big idea to life. And so this conversation is going to be awesome because today we are going to talk about power, or more specifically, the power gaps that we all have as women that can prevent us from really succeeding in the career or business that we love in the way that we want to. And so this conversation is so critical because even if we have all the clarity in the world, even if we have a step-by-step blueprint on what we need to do, even if we have multi-six-figure, strategies that get us paid, if we don't figure out the power gaps, we end up failing to implement on the very things that we know to do. And that's how important this conversation is. And that's kind of why I wanted to this guest that I'm so excited about. I'm kind of tripping over myself because I'm excited to have her here. But I'm so excited to be sharing the platform with Caprino. I'll give you her bio and I'll tell you how amazing she is from a bio perspective, and then we'll tell you what I really think about her. But Cappy is an internationally recognized career and leadership coach. She's a writer, she's a speaker, she's an educator, she's dedicated to the advancement of women in business. She's a former corporate vice president, so she knows the game. She's also a trained marriage and family therapist. She's a seasoned executive coach. She's a senior Forbes contributor. She is the author of the book Breakdown Breakthrough and of the upcoming book, which I'm really excited about, titled The Most Powerful You: 7 Bravery Boosting Paths to Career Bliss. Bottom line is Cappy is bad. She is bad on so many different levels. Yes. And her mission really is to support a Finding Brave global movement that inspires and empowers women to close their power gaps and create more impact and make the difference that they long in the world. And I love that mission. I really do.
Thank you.
But let me tell you why I love her and why I'm so excited to be able to share her message with this platform. First of all, she is ridiculously down to earth. She's got a heart of gold and an amazing spirit of generosity. That's just bar none, achievements aside. But she walks her talk. And unbeknownst to me, I've actually noticed Cappy for many years. Like, it's weird because I've seen, and she's looking because she doesn't know that.
I didn't know that.
I have seen you at different evolutions of your work, like in part because you're a thought leader. And so that means that you're kind of like as seen on everywhere. So I come across you, but I've watched you and I've watched your content and I've seen you. And when you see people who are walking their talk in the amazing things, but also in the vulnerability and the challenges, like those are the people that you want to learn from. And so when I decided to pull together this interview series, and I didn't even think about Cappy initially until someone else referred her, and they said, "Hey, have you ever thought about Caprino?" And I was like, "I know her name," because I've seen her so many places. But when you want to do something like this, you want to learn from people who are real, who walk their talk, who'll tell you like it is, who have the track record, but also have the humility to be like, "Hey, this is the deal." And so you are in for a treat. Get your pen and paper handy because she's going to serve you in a great way. And so it's my honor to have you here. And I can't wait to get into the goody, but I need you to feel goody about the fact that you're here because I'm really excited about you.
I can't thank you enough. What beautiful words. That means the world to me. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited and I'm very honored. Oh,
yay. All righty. So I'm a big believer in the message that we're going to talk about today. And before we even get into Cappy's content, the first question, Cappy, because this whole conversation is around creating your perfect work, I like for people to be able to see, hear, and feel what perfect work looks like. So for you, because you have been through iterations in your career and even in your business, you've pivoted, right, in different ways at different times. How do you know that right now, the work that you're doing now is your perfect work? And mind you, it might not be the forever. It could evolve, right? But how do you know every day when you get up that this is the mountain I'm meant to climb today?
What a question. And folks, we didn't prepare for this, so I'm winging it. What a fantastic question. So I'm going to answer it the way I authentically feel. But again, I hope hope it's helpful, but it may not be for everyone. I often look at what my corporate career was for 18 years. And, I say this a lot. It was very successful on the outside, but not on the inside.
Yeah.
So having lived 18 years of that,
Yeah.
what I'm feeling now is always an interesting backdrop to that, or juxtaposition. So to answer your question, why I feel that, and I have to tell you, I so get where you're going with perfect work, but I do stay away from the word perfect
Yep.
because, as we're going to hear in these paragraphs, I
Yep.
think women are often perfectionistic
Yep.
over functioners.
Mhm.
So I'll stay away from perfect for my terminology, but perfect work to me aligns with who you are at your highest level and also what you value deeply.
Yeah.
And we're all very different about what we value. Can I give you one little example
Yes,
of that?
absolutely.
I always felt, as a marketer, so that was my corporate career, I wasn't really an expert at the highest level. And actually, I didn't care to be. I didn't care enough
Yeah.
about marketing other people's,
Yeah.
in some ways, really crappy programs.
Yeah.
When then I became a therapist, and I want to tell you, it was so important to me because you have people kind of in your hands.
Yeah.
You can't be winging it. You can't be blowing it. You have to know what you're doing, because I dealt with rape, incest, pedophilia, suicidality, drug addiction. And I want to tell you that I felt it would take me so long to have mastery, to feel like I was really rocking it as a therapist. And also, one of my values is bringing new solutions to the table. And I felt that for me to do that would take me 20 years in therapy. But then I learned coaching, and I felt like, wow, I love this, but I also see it's missing some frameworks and methodology, career coaching in particular, that helps women as women are today. And I do not believe women are men in skirts. I believe we're very different, and we need to honor those differences.
Yeah.
So perfect work to me is, number one, mastery. Number two, bringing new solutions to the table that are my solutions, that are based on me having had a lot of breakdown moments that turned into breakthrough moments. It's also filled with connecting with amazing people that help me grow. Growth is part of it for me. I get very bored very quickly. So, we were talking earlier, my doing a podcast allows me every week to sit with my mouth agape about what I'm learning. So it's those values that create perfect work for me. And is it perfect every minute? No. Heck no.
Yeah.
But if everything were perfect every minute, what would we be doing here? I mean, it'd be boring. So does that answer it?
No, it answers the question perfectly.
Oh, good.
And I
Perfectly.
appreciate that distinction, because perfect work isn't, does it feel great all day? Do I not fail? Do I not get my feelings hurt? That's not perfect work. But perfect work is, man, how does this align to me and my value and the contribution that I feel that I was born and designed to make in the world? Like a good pair of jeans or a good pair of, like, they just fit right for you. And it might be the absolute worst thing for somebody else.
So true.
Absolute
That's
worst
so
thing
true.
for them, but it is so right for you. And that's a wonderful feeling, because that's going to sustain you through the challenging moments for sure. Is knowing that, man, I'm supposed to be doing this. There's good and there's meaning behind, what I'm doing in the world. And so,
right. Can I add one more thing?
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
me, perfect work is turning my mess into a message. So I say that if I can help one woman every single day, that's a beautiful life, and that's perfect for me.
Yes. So we're so grateful that you've chosen to step into that space for sure.
Thank
So
you.
now we're going to talk about power gaps, because power gaps, when you talk about bringing new solutions that are your solutions, power gaps is your solution. Tell us about that concept, where it came from, why you feel compelled to really kind of move that message into the market.
Thank you for asking that. So, as you mentioned, I have a book, 10 years old, Breakdown Breakthrough, and that came out of a year-long research study I did interviewing women who'd had a crisis and overcame it. And what came out of that book was 12 hidden crises that working women face. So you can tell on my radar is what isn't working, and let's close that. I'm not a strengths finder coach.
Okay.
What you've got strengths in, they're rocking. To me,
Yeah.
I'm looking at, right. So about 2 years ago, after now working with over 15,000 women,
Mhm.
I love to take a step back and look at, all right, what is going on in a kind of macro level?
Yeah.
And I asked myself, if I could identify one thing that all of these women, and they're mid to high level professional women, are coming to me needing,
Okay.
and what am I helping them get? What is it? And 2 words popped into mind. The first was bravery,
Mhm.
but the second was power.
Okay.
And I started to attune to, what does that mean, power? Where are people, women, but the truth is men are struggling with these too, but they
Yeah.
struggle with them differently.
Yeah.
Where are they not able to, and we're going to talk about the 7 gaps, where are they not able to recognize who they are and how amazing they are? Where are they not able to speak up? Where are they not able to say no to mistreatment? And it became, I love coming up with these frameworks because changing and figuring out what to change to be happier is hard. There's
Mhm.
a lot we could niggle around and change.
Yeah.
So this framework helped me see that, wow, women need more bravery today and they need more positive power. And what is in the way of that?
Mhm.
And there's a lot that's in the way of that, particularly how we're culturally trained.
Mhm.
uh, I interviewed, speaking of being blown away by someone, I interviewed Terry Real, a renowned therapist and best-selling author, and he talks about patriarchy
Mhm.
and that we're living in a patriarchal society, and patriarchy is the water we swim in and we're the fish.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of patriarchal influences that keep women from being able to be as powerful as they want to be, but we have to overcome that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. So we're going to start chipping away
Great.
at some of those gaps. And what's interesting, and this was a statistic that I read somewhere in your work, and you can correct me and give it the
Yeah.
proper context. But I think you said that of the women that come into your coaching programs or women that you've surveyed, something like that, that 90% of them had at least one of the 7 power gaps that we're going to talk about. Did I capture
You
it
got
correct?
it right, but it's even more than that. So I put out a survey, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't just the community of people that I serve. So I
Yeah.
put it out on LinkedIn, where I have 900,000 followers, blah, blah, blah. So at this stage now, a few months into the survey, 98% of those who have filled out this survey have at least one of these 7 gaps, and over 75% have 3 or more of these gaps.
Mhm.
So this is an epidemic. And if when you're listening to these are no small things.
Mhm.
Being gapped in these areas holds us back from
Yeah.
thriving, from fulfilling our potential, from being happy.
Yeah.
And I'm focusing on happy in your work, but truthfully, as a former therapist, they're intertwined. You are a person when you show up to your professional life.
Mhm.
So if you have these gaps in your professional life, you're not happy in your personal life either.
Yeah.
I really.
No, I agree. I think they're inextricably linked. And so we're going to dive into these power gaps. And again, for those of us, folks that are listening, the conversation is so critical because these are the things that can keep us from the very dream
Yeah.
that's whispering in our hearts. And sometimes we think it's, well, I don't know what I want. And sometimes it's not that you don't know what you want. Sometimes it's these power gaps that keep you from even being able to be honest about what the thing really is.
Or
And
even
then,
able to recognize it,
yeah,
because
right.
it's deep. It's
Yeah,
deep stuff.
yeah,
I'm not a fan of, just superficial tactics. They don't tend to work when in a deeper way you're blocked. That's what
absolutely.
this is getting at.
Absolutely. So let's dive in. So power gap number 1 is not recognizing your special talents, abilities, and accomplishments.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I would say this is the number one gap that I hear all the time, every minute of every day. This is, and let me tell you how I've determined this.
Mhm.
I have something called a career path assessment, which is 11 pages of questions I wish someone had asked me 30
Yeah.
years ago.
Yep.
And if I had answered them honestly, I would not have made the mistakes I made. So I do want to say every one of these gaps are gaps that I have had or still have and still work on them and close them. So, what I see in women, and when they fill out the career path assessment, I'm asking them every job they ever had, what they loved, what they hated, the biggest challenge, what they think their talents are. Unbelievably, a massive amount of women cannot answer the question, what are your special talents?
Mm-hmm.
They can't, they either leave the question blank
Mm-hmm.
or they offer these vague descriptors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I know after working with so many women is every one of us is special, is unique. Every one of us does it. It's like we're a thumbprint. Nobody is like you. Nobody is like me. And, you know, I can even say, I don't believe there's a coach on the planet that offers what I offer. That doesn't mean I think I'm the best in the world, although I think I'm pretty great at it. It's that my amalgam of triumphs and tribulations and how I was raised and born and what I did and what I learned and the failures makes me unique, as it does you and everyone else. So what I see is the vast majority of women cannot say, here's what's special. Here's what makes me stand out. Just yesterday I read one and the person said, I'm not sure I ever did stand out. So if we cannot recognize, and here's another thing I love to share, I feel that the happiest careers are built on natural talents, not the talents and skills you have that you've had to kill yourself to get that are hard.
Yeah.
And a lot of men don't agree.
Mm-hmm.
I've read a lot of posts about do the thing you're good at,
Mm-hmm.
forget passion. I think it was Mark Cuban who I'm mentioning in my book. I don't agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
If the skill is hard to use, if you're bored out of your mind, if it's a struggle, don't build a career around it.
Yep.
Know what comes naturally to you. And usually that emerges early on in life.
Yeah.
You can see it. So the final thing I'll say about this is when I look at who I was at 18, I was a singer, a performer. I was an English major. I was the writer on a journalist on the paper. I was a competitive tennis player. I loved the stage. I love to understand what makes people tick. That's what I do today. But I spent so many years not recognizing those are my talents and gifts that should be used.
Yeah. That right there, no, we can hang it up. We can hang it up. Because I'll often ask, you know, folks, what are you brilliant at? Like brilliant. Like nobody can touch you as it relates to that thing. And I phrase it that way because a lot of, especially high achieving women, we're good at a lot of things. We do a lot of things well. And some of it's learned, right? And acquired, you know, through a lot of sweat and tears and grinding. But to your point, the thing that you do brilliantly is often so natural and effortless that we can
recognize
dismiss it and devalue it because it wasn't hard fought, you know? And it doesn't need to be honed or improved and mastered,
really
right?
true.
But even the word brilliance, people get afraid of that. Like, what? That, you know, that there's something about, and people will say your zone of genius or whatever, and there's lots of different ways of saying it, but there's that special brilliant spark that everybody's got, but it's so hard for us to own up to it. And we can spend years, 10, 15, 20 years chasing our tail around something only to get to the place that that's who we were all the time. Right.
And I think that in particular, women are afraid to say it.
Yeah.
Because we're trained culturally not to be braggarts. I can't tell you how many people I work with people's LinkedIn profile. I don't think I should say that. I'm going to sound like a bragger. What if someone says, no, you're not brilliant at that? Women are trained not to shine our light too brightly. So I love your question. I love it.
So power gap number 2, communicating from fear, not strength.
All right. So this is all about the cultural mandate that women be pleasing, accommodating, malleable, not overbearing. I mean, there's research study, and my TEDx talk talks about this, Time to Brave Up, that women are punished. I don't mean lightly. We're punished in the workforce often when we're assertive or strong. The problem with this is, things haven't quite changed yet. But I see it. I have a 25-year-old daughter and a 22-year-old son. I see things shifting. I see there's an embracing of a strong woman in a way that wasn't possible 20 years ago. So what I ask people to do, women, is look at what you need to say that you have been afraid to say. That can be a conversation with your spouse, your mother, your boss, the HR director. What are you saying, not saying? Or the flip side, how are you saying something but with fear? And the way we do that is we mitigate our comments. We either say, I'm sorry, I have a question. We say, I'm sorry all the time. And my son and I debate. He's like, oh, Mom, that's just kind of a norm. It doesn't mean you're really sorry. Yeah, but men don't say it. The research shows they're not saying sorry. And I really believe that every word you say is either used for your benefit, or it can be a weapon, or it can be something that suppresses you. So I notice I say sorry way too much. Sorry when I'm not sorry at all. So communicating how we use our words is going to pave the way for people to respect us, for people to listen to us, for us to become leaders. It's critical that we communicate from strength, not fear. But we have a lot to learn and a lot to shift for that to happen.
It was so interesting. I was having a conversation with a woman and she was preparing for an interview, and she's interviewing for a chief of staff role in a technology company. She's brilliant. Like she's really, she's really good at what she does. And so we were kind of talking about how she was going to prepare, and we were talking around this concept of, being able to express. She was going to be interviewing for a panel, and obviously those folks are evaluating her to see if she's a fit for the role and fit for the company. And at the same time, she's evaluating them and their organization to see if this is the place that she wants to give her lifeblood and her talents and, all of the things that she brings into the marketplace. And we were scripting how to communicate that. Wow. And it was so interesting how resistant she was. She was like, I can't tell them that I'm evaluating them. Like, I feel very uncomfortable saying that. When in actuality, as a candidate, you are, or we should be, because again, this is the place that we are going to give our time, our talents, our energy and whatnot. And that place also has to be a good fit for us. Like it's a mutual assessment here. And you get to be unapologetic about the fact that you're assessing them and you're looking at opportunities and you're trying to figure out what's best for you. There's no lack of humility in that.
Right.
But it was so interesting, like just that idea of stepping, and again, amazing person, but the idea of stepping up and actually communicating that from a place of power was so difficult for her to embrace.
That's so interesting. Something comes to mind that I have a Forbes blog and I interview some amazing people. And a few years ago, I interviewed the behavioral science guys, Joseph Grenny and David Maxfield. And they had done research where briefly they did a video of a male actor and a female actor saying the same thing, and it was forceful. Okay. It was, I'm sitting at a board, I'm looking at what's being presented, and here's what they said. I don't agree with the direction that the group is going here. Well, both men and women audiences evaluated the man and the woman, and the woman her perceived value dropped precipitously because she said that. Now, his dropped a little bit, so apparently we don't like forceful, assertive people, but hers, she was valued as less competent and actually less deserving of compensation, high levels of compensation. So they also tested mitigating statements. What can we say in front of a forceful comment that will allow us to be heard and accepted? And they tested a number of things, and what they found is if we can make a value statement before something forceful, we can be heard more and there's more agreement. And for instance, they suggested something like, I really value transparency and honesty. And so to be very transparent here, I don't agree with the direction we're going. So I happen to love that. And it's not that I'm trying to say we should soften our message, but in your situation that you're talking about with your client, you know, I learned in therapy training, there's a reframe. There's a way to say things that fits the facts, but allows for expansion and positivity. A reframe of that might be something like, I think I really value fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen in my roles that cultural fit, skill fit, it's so important for success, for the success of my performance and the team. So I'm looking at the fit here as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that really means I'm looking at you as much
Mm-hmm.
as you're looking at me.
Yep.
But sometimes we can say it in a value way
Yep.
that doesn't put people off,
Mm-hmm.
because we've got a lot of narcissism in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you want to work at a narcissistic
Yep.
culture, but there's very insecure people in very high places.
Yeah.
So if I said to you, Renessa, we're talking before your series, but I'm evaluating you just as much as you're evaluating me, you might be like, well,
Yep.
thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I come from the place where a lot of people are insecure. So let's give them the important message, but in a way they can hear it and not be
Absolutely. I absolutely agree.
perturbed.
Delivery is critical.
Yeah, right.
It's critical. And to your point, it's us being willing to even go there and have the communication to figure out how to soften it. But if I'm not willing to have the communication, oh my gosh, right? But
And
yeah.
what we just said is about 100-year course. I mean, how to communicate the hard message in a way that comes from love. Somebody once said you can say anything when you say it with love in your heart.
Yep.
I'd add love and compassion and empathy.
Yeah, I agree.
It's really 100 years of learning.
Absolutely.
It's not easy.
It's not.
Right?
Power gap 3,
Uh-huh.
reluctance to ask for what you deserve.
Okay, here we go. So I remember reading a study that MBA students, male students, 50% of them right out of their MBA program negotiated their very first salary, and only 7% of women.
Wow.
Well, what we see with the gender pay gap is, I believe, in part because women out of the gate are not comfortable negotiating. And again, we don't pop out of the chute like this. We're trained. This is not, a few people have said to me, you're blaming the victim. I don't believe I'm blaming the victim. I'm trying to make women not be victims. I'm trying to help them understand how they can behave in a way to get rid of victimization. But part of this is you've got to understand your value in an unemotional way. A lot of women come to me and they're crying because they didn't get that raise or they got passed over. And I try to work with them about, can you get rid of the emotionality and can you build a case that is irrefutable about why you deserve this raise or this promotion or this plum assignment? But first, you have to believe you're worthy of asking for what you want.
Yeah.
So you have to work through, each of us.
Yeah.
What do I, and I've had to do this with negotiating terms of an agreement with a publisher, negotiating terms of a vendor I'm using. And I really think it's about, what do I feel I deserve? What is reasonable to ask for?
Yeah.
And how do I make the case so that it's not an emotional, but I deserve this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you deserve it? What's the case?
Yeah, this is a critical component, and I'm glad that you brought in just even negotiating terms with a publisher, because it's not just about a career and a promotion. There are folks who are listening in who are, you're trying to build businesses or you're trying to get a message out into the marketplace, and sometimes we're charging too little, way too little for for the transformation or the value that you bring to the table. And for some folks, they're afraid that if I ask for too much, that then the client's going to say no and this and that. And sometimes the client does say no because it is too much for the client.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that you're not worth that, right? And so it's hard to even be able to distinguish for some folks, am I targeting the wrong client? If I want to play ball here and perhaps the clients aren't playing the ball there, it may mean there's an up leveling.
Right.
But for a lot of us, I think we tend to think, oh, well, it's my value. Somehow they don't want me at this price and I've got a discount or I've got a this or that or the other. So this is
I love
really,
it.
really
Can
fresh.
I riff on that for 1 minute?
Yes, you can. Riff away.
I just had an amazing conversation with Jamie Masters, who's of her business, The Eventual Millionaire.
Okay.
And the very flip side of what you just said came up, and I'm going to be so transparent. How do I put this? So hourly, I can command a high fee, and I do that in executive coaching where companies hire me. It's a lot. But it's come to the point where in 15 years of doing this business, I don't, well, it was always the case, but I don't just want to work with wealthy people. That's not a happy thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, for my private coaching, there's a premium fee to pay because my time is very limited for private. But what I've discovered through talking to Jamie, and I highly recommend her, speaking with her, is that if you also get too hung up on what you think your value is, rather than what is the ultimate goal. And let me be clear, for me, the ultimate goal is reaching more than 1 million women a year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I stay stuck with my value is $750 an hour or $1,000 an hour, you have to look at, yes, you may be worth that.
Yeah.
But is that going to get you to your goal of reaching 1 million women a year?
Yeah.
So I think the issue of pricing is incredibly difficult. And really, can I say the word? You almost need a you need a spiritual approach to it. You need an intuitive approach.
Yeah.
So I love it that you believe you're worth a certain amount, but I want you to look at your prices and ask yourself, is my whole pricing strategy, is my whole product development strategy actually achieving the goal that I want? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I love it because it's true, right? There are several ways to make $1 million, right? You can have one person pay you $1 million. You could have, and so the lower the price point, you could still hit 1 million. It just means greater volume, right? And so the business model and all of that works for your business obviously depends on part and parcel. What is your outcome?
Right.
And when we talk about getting highly paid, to your point, not everybody could afford your private coaching premium rate. Like but quite naturally going to exclude a whole lot of people, not because you're not worth it, but because they cannot afford it.
Right. So I think the question is, for me, how else can I serve these people that can't afford it? What other low cost, low barrier ways can I happily offer? Not begrudgingly, I'm not, I'm getting less than I'm worth.
You're all resentful, mad.
Right. All of that. My gosh, that's a whole course. Just on
but it is true.
pricing,
and those are things
value.
that I've had to come to terms with as well. Like, okay, there's a certain population that I desire to serve in some ways. And do I price them out at this level? And then do I really want to serve them or do I not? Like, so
exactly.
So that's really, really true. But that's very different in what you choose to charge or what you choose to accept is very, very different than what you believe you deserve. And I think that's the distinction that you're making with the power gap, because for a lot of us, we don't charge enough, or we don't go for the promotion, or when someone says, what are your salary requirements? We won't say what they really are because we don't believe that we deserve that.
100%.
That's a very different conversation.
So true.
Very different.
So rich. Love the conversation.
Power gap number 4, which this one I absolutely love. Isolating from influential support.
Okay.
Bring it home.
So bring it home. Bring it on home. So there's so much. I just want everyone to know this is not me making this stuff up. There's so much quantitative and qualitative research that supports all this. But what we see is, we talk about mentors and sponsors. Let me just start there. Mentors, in the way I define it, are people in your sphere who you've demonstrated your potential to, who want to help you, who are 10 steps ahead. Sponsors are exactly that, plus one thing. They're powerful. They're high level. They have clout. They can open doors for you when you're not even in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what the research shows is men more naturally identify the high-level person who can help them in the organization, in their field, and they go for it, and they make those relationships. Women don't do it as much. Judy Robinette is a wonderful sponsor, mentor of mine, and she's written some amazing books, Crack the Funding Code and Networking, and she says that women tend to stay in the wrong room when they network. They stay with women who are exactly their level. And I interviewed Ivan Meisner, who founded BNI. He's an amazing, brilliant guy about networking. And he's talking about if you're not intimidated by the person you're networking with, you're not reaching high enough. So what I'm sharing here is, and you know, in my book, every chapter has a story of a woman who's had the gap and has overcome it. And in this chapter, it's Anita, who talked about how she was good initially at really connecting with influential support, but then in a shift in her career, she forgot all about it and ended up very isolated, very alone. You need people for any big dream. You're not going to do it alone and in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It's sitting in your house, pretty much. You need people. And if you're afraid to go speak to the person who's 100 steps ahead of you, who has the clout and power to elevate you, then you're holding yourself back. So we need to understand how to network. One thing I talk about constantly is LinkedIn is my happy place. I love it. And my gosh, there's 580 million people on LinkedIn. Why wouldn't you be rocking it at the highest level there? Why wouldn't you be following influencers who make your head explode with their ideas? Why wouldn't you? You know, people, not that I'm one of these, but people will reach out. Oh, I just listened to your podcast or read your book, and here's what I take from it. Well, immediately I'm going to respond to these people. They're already going to be in my sphere now to the degree I can, you know, connect with them. So start thinking higher and think about people who you admire, who are powerful and influential, and connect with them.
Let's talk about that, because I think or let's talk more deeply about that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a point of fear for a lot of people. And it's one of those things where someone once said, I think it was one of the interviewers for this series, they were like, by the time you need a connection, at the time that you need a connection, it's a little too late to build it, right?
That's a great saying.
And I'm sure I butchered it, but that was the gist of what
Yeah.
Yeah. But the whole point being that for a lot of us, this whole idea of building relationship capital, it does take time, and it does take intentionality.
That's right.
And in a level of genuineness and an investment, right? Because people can see fake, you know, a mile away, or inauthenticity, or, you know, whatever. And people like to help, but we don't like to be used, right? And so when you're following influencers and all of that, that takes some time and investment and, you know, consistency.
Right.
How would you recommend that people begin to grow as it relates to building influential support? Because obviously there's the idea of paying for speed. You find it, you know, somebody wants to do what you do or learn what you've learned, they go and they invest in your coaching program to, you know, get what you have. That's kind of paying for speed. But when you're talking about mentors and sponsors and all of that, are people supposed to just be knocking on the door and saying, hey, can I pick your brain? Which people hate to hear oftentimes. Right. How would you recommend that women begin to invest in those relationships and build them in a way that's effective over the, you know, short and long term?
I love this question. And again, do we have another hour? But I've written a lot about this, and so you can look, you know, in Google Caprino, Forbes mentoring, or networking. But I want to say a few things and highlight what you said. It is too late. When people all of a sudden need some help, there's a desperation to their outreach, and there's a hand out to the outreach. That's the problem. Yeah. Because you are going, it's all about this world. It's all energy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've only going me in your energy, even if you mask it in your words, but you're really needing help, it's
Yeah.
an off-putting situation. If, on the other hand, there's a mutuality, if there's, gosh, I loved that. Like even the story with Judy Robinette, I featured her in Forbes, fell in love with her, and like, wow. She wrote me, this is how a high-level influencer might do it. A month later, 2 months later, she wrote, hi, and she told me what was going on with her, and then she goes, what do you need?
Mm.
And I thought, what do I need? I mean, she has billionaires in her Rolodex and amazing people. And I felt so intimidated. But then I said, I better figure out what I need.
What I need,
I
yeah.
better get an answer to her. And she wrote back, of course, and here's 10 women I want you to follow up with. Holy cow. But the idea, I said to her, what can I do for you? It doesn't feel right for me to just take that. I'm Adam Grant wrote a book, what does it give, take, or, about your style. If someone gives in that generous way, I want to give back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, what can I do for you? And she said, actually, you can help me write my new bio. And, I do this for a living, right? So I whipped it up. So don't come with your hand out.
Mm.
Come with a curiosity, with the idea that you also can be of benefit, even though you think, what can I do for this person who is so illustrious?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can do something. I'm sure you can do something. You might know someone, you might, whatever.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you really want to get on the radar of someone who's influential, let's say they're a thought leader, be generous. If someone writes on Twitter or Instagram, holy cow, look at Kathy's article on this, and this is what I got from it. Now, don't just do it to,
No.
stroke somebody. Do it because it meant something to you.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone does that, they're now on my radar. I'm going to follow the rest of what they say.
Mm-hmm.
And I've developed a lot of deep personal relationships with people who have done that.
Mm-hmm.
So be generous. Don't do it out of me. Do it out of mutuality. Don't do it when you're desperate. And here's another thing. Don't reach out to a stranger and ask them to be your mentor. Mentorship comes from you demonstrating your potential to me demonstrating my potential to you. No one is going to say yes to a mentor, to investing the time and energy in mentoring you when they know nothing about you.
Yeah.
And I see people doing that. Kathy, will you mentor me? I can't mentor you if I know. Number one, I'm beleaguered by people saying that, who I don't know,
Yeah.
who I've never heard of before that minute of asking me to mentor them.
Mm-hmm.
Does this help?
Mm-hmm.
Tips?
It does. I sit on this point or park on this point because it's so important. So important. And sometimes we don't know how to invest in relationships. And some of us have never been trained, nor do we know how to value, because there isn't, sometimes there isn't an immediate return on that investment.
You're right.
And sometimes, in the reality, sometimes you'll invest in someone and you won't get a return from that person. The return will come from someplace completely to the left.
You're right.
But I do think, and this is something personally, especially in my early years, I just did not understand the value of it. I didn't get it. And it was not a strength, in part because for a lot of other reasons, a couple of these power gaps that are a little further down were in there. But I recognize, now in mid 40s, how important and how rich relationships are, and how one person can literally just open the floodgate for you. And some of us,
one conversation can literally transform.
and some of us, when we're trying to create perfect work, or we're making a pivot, or we're starting a business, or what have you, we need, the compound efforts of other people around us. And if we've not invested in them, then you end up struggling very isolated, and you're working hard, but it's not exponential growth. It's not multiplied effort. And I've seen that in my work, and I know the value of it. And so even as folks begin to go through this interview series, it's so important to recognize, I've got to start investing now, especially if I don't need it now, because when I need it, I need to have deposited something to be able to withdraw from.
Perfectly said. I want to say one other thing, can I?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I have a pet peeve about people reaching out to me on LinkedIn, and they come with some guys. Hey, Kathy, I love to learn from leaders who da 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 da. I say connect, and then 2 seconds later, they're hitting me up with their
Pitch.
service.
Mhm.
I have come out and said on LinkedIn, don't do that. It's ridiculous. And
Mhm.
let me tell you why. Would you go to a cocktail party? I think LinkedIn is like a cocktail party in the sky. Would you go to a cocktail party with amazing people and say, hi, I'm Kathy. Nice to meet you. Okay, let me talk about how you need my coaching. It's offensive. And
Mhm.
I've had salespeople particularly go, screw you. This is LinkedIn is a way we get business.
Yeah.
Who made you the goddess of LinkedIn? And I said, look, you may not agree with me, but you are turning off a lot of people.
Mhm.
This is not how you do it. You don't pitch someone the second you connect with them. It's offensive and you'll lose them for life. That's
Yeah.
my view. That's my pet
Absolutely.
peeve.
So for the sake of time, we've got 3 more power gaps,
Yep.
and I'm gonna read them off,
Good.
and then I want you to choose the one of the 3 that we want to elaborate on, and then we'll make sure that people can connect to you. Oops. And then that's the timer.
Okay.
We're trying
Well,
to
it's
stay close
time's
to
up,
time.
people.
Time's up. No, we're gonna keep going. But so power gap number 5 is acquiescing. Can I stop this? Yes. Acquiescing instead of saying stop. That's power gap number 5. Power gap number 6 is losing sight of your thrilling dream.
Hmm.
Power gap number 7 is allowing past trauma to define you.
Oh,
Which of
okay.
those
I
3
got to
do you
choose
want to?
one.
Yeah.
All right. I really want to talk about the final one, and all else I can't, because the one that most people struggle with most intensely is losing sight of my most thrilling dream. So I got to talk about that one. About the healing one, about the past, I will say you are what your childhood taught you to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to understand that it's playing out every minute of every day unless you've healed it. So whatever you're going through, it's probably something from childhood. That's what I would say about that. But let's talk about losing sight of your thrilling dream.
I'm glad you chose that one because I had yes. What
Oh,
exclamation
good.
point on
Oh,
that one? So
good.
yes,
Okay.
this is the one.
So in the survey, 25% of all those gaps, people say this is the one that it's killing me. What does this mean? It means that when we got out of college, or if we didn't go to college, right out of our schooling, most of us had an idea of what life could be,
Mm-hmm.
what our work could be. I could be doing something fun. I could be writing. I could sing. I could whatever. They had hope.
Mm-hmm.
By the time they hit 40, the hope is shot usually. How did I get here? How am I working with these toxic people? What a narcissist. I'm not doing anything of meaning. I mean, this was me at 40. Chronic illness. I remember thinking in many jobs, is this what I'm going to be doing with my
Yeah.
precious life?
Yeah.
The home life was great. The children, there was meaning there. So people say, gosh, that's me. But I'm 40 now or 35 and I've invested 10 years and I make $100,000 and I have a home and I have 2 kids.
Yeah.
And that was me. What am I going to do? Give up my marketing career and go off and do, and what would I go off and do anyway? If
Mm-hmm.
you ask people, if you won the lottery, what would you do? None of them know what,
Mm-hmm.
because we've lost sight of who we really are, and we aren't career coaches. We don't
Yeah.
understand how can I pivot?
Yeah.
So what I love to talk about is the things that hold people back mostly are money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making this amount and I need to make this amount. What the heck can I do? Number 2, fear of risk,
Mm-hmm.
fear of not doing the secure thing, which I have to kind of chuckle at. Nothing, I need to say this, nothing outside of yourself is secure. Not a job, not a company. I know because I was laid off after being promised a huge career and buying a huge house because they said buy a huge house. You're
Mm-hmm.
here. Um, what is secure is you developing yourself, developing your gifts and talents in ways that you love. Now, I have to also say this. People think, I hate what I do. I'm a finance director. I think I'm going to start a bed and breakfast. And the reality is they don't want to start a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
But I have a way to help them understand that. Go and interview and try on the
Yep.
professional identity of this thing. They don't want that. But they do want maybe more creativity. They maybe want to be in event planning instead of marketing. They want something to come forward that they've let go dead in their life. But people don't make change because number 1, they can't figure out what to change. Number 2, they're scared to death of risk and losing money and self-esteem that they get from the high title that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I say to people is you don't have to chuck everything. You don't have to start over to find perfect work. Often it's a
Yes.
pivot.
Yes.
Often it's connecting a dot you
Yes.
didn't see. Ooh, I'm getting excited here.
Yes.
Those Italian and Greek
Yes.
arms are moving.
Yes.
You don't,
He said it.
right. Because the answer is, when you're 90 looking back, what do you want to have said you've done?
Mhm.
And, I'm interviewing Bronnie Ware from Australia, who has written the best-selling book, The Top Regrets of the Dying.
Mm,
Nobody's saying on their deathbed, I wish I'd gotten that promotion.
mhm,
They're not saying that. They're saying, God, I wish I'd done what I really knew I wanted to do and
mhm,
said what I not wanted to say and built the relationships I wanted to build.
mhm.
So there it is. If you feel so lost, or what do I do, or you need outside help, can't solve
Yep.
a problem on the level of consciousness that created it, you need
Yep.
help. But you don't have to give up everything to have an amazing life and job.
Right. I firmly believe that. I firmly believe.
I'm sure you
I
do, given the
firmly
work you
believe that
do.
the pieces, everything of your personality, your 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 suffering, your wins, like all of the pieces, however you're designed, is so ideal for whatever that desire is moving forward. Now, does that mean you have to add on some things? Sure, maybe, right? But everything about you is just using the word perfect again, but it's just so perfect for where you're supposed to
Right.
contribute moving forward. And I've seen it time and time and time and time and time again. So I'm 100% convinced that it is not I gotta chuck everything.
No.
And
I mean, it may be like I chucked it and became a therapist and a coach, but really, I talk about, do I have time? The pendulum swing.
Mhm.
That's what I call it. When we're in pain and agony over where we are, narcissistic boss,
Yeah.
not meaningful work, we go to the opposite ends of the world. I want to be a chef. You might, but really, what you're mostly doing is running.
Yeah.
So when you address all of these gaps and start
Mhm.
to change, you'll find that there's somewhere in between. You don't have to go to the ends of the earth usually.
Right.
I mean, I find that I use the therapeutic training, but I'm not a therapist. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
happiest not being a therapist. I'm
Yeah.
happiest doing exactly the perfect work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And you can
Awesome.
too, people. You
So
can.
yay! So in the spirit of generosity, as Kathy has been so generous in this conversation, she's also provided an opportunity for folks to connect to some of her content as well. And so I want you to share what that free gift is that you have for all of the listeners, and then I'll tell them how they're able to access it.
Wonderful. And I forgot what we, set apart there, but I have so many free
Yeah,
assessments.
whatever's
But we
there.
have, yeah, I got a whole, and you're going to share that link, but I have that career path assessment that it doesn't give you a score, but it gives you the opportunity to understand how amazing you are if you
Yeah.
take the time to download it and fill it out. I also have that free power gap survey, which will help people understand which, if any, of these gaps you have.
Yeah.
I've got a long list of freebies, Renessa. I'll share them
Yeah,
all.
yeah. So we'll get so whatever link is on this
That
video.
calls to you. Use your That's it.
But the bottom line is connect to Kathy, connect to her stuff.
Please.
She's great.
Thank you.
Her content is good, and her content's amazing actually. But more than that, again, she walks her talk, and this is the type of woman that you want to learn from. And
Oh.
so, yeah, click on
Right
whatever
back at
is
you,
there,
girl.
get in there, figure out how to stay connected to her stuff.
Close those power gaps, and
So,
definitely, I can't
and
thank
look
you
out
enough.
for the book. When is the book?
July 2020, and called The Most Powerful You.
Yes.
Let's not shun power. Let's embrace it. Positive power. I
Absolutely.
can't thank you enough for having me with
It's
your
been
amazing
awesome.
lineup that I can't wait to learn from.
Yeah, it's
Thanks, my
awesome.
dear.
And
Thanks,
so
everybody.
I'll speak for Kathy as well as myself, and we want to wish you an amazing day and a beautiful life and all that other good stuff. So take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.